if you have never experienced a generational trauma, as maybe a support to somebody, is knowing that you cannot understand.
Okay.
And not writing it off just because you don't understand.
I mean, this is where you are, but this is not where you always have to be, right? Every day you can do better and be better. And let me show you what that looks like. Do you do public speaking at all? At all? I'm going to give you guys a tip right here, piece of advice. You can use it or not. I don't really care.
I want to impact as many people as I can in as little amount of time, and that's just kind of how I'm wired.
Welcome back to the Mental Health Janitors, where we help you clean up the mess in your head. And as always, I'm your host, Sergeant Q, and with me as always, Doc Jess.
Hi, welcome.
And today we have a great episode for you guys. We have a special guest in studio. Nino, what's your exact title? What's your title now?
Executive Outreach Officer for ESD.
Executive Outreach.
From the Employment Security Department.
Okay, I might say that a couple times.
Army veteran.
And with us, we have Nino, who is an Army veteran and now works for the Department of Employment Securities. He is the
Executive Outreach.
He's the Executive Outreach Director for the Department of Employment Securities. Previously, he was the Community Outreach Director for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's the one who created the Task Force 12. We're also going to talk about AI tools and how you can utilize them in your business, in your social life to be able to do things faster. And we're also going to talk about generational trauma and some tools and techniques that you can use to help overcome generational trauma, or if you know someone who's experienced it, to be able to be that soft place where they can land when they're experiencing maybe some troubled times because that generational trauma is coming back. How you can be that support network for them and say things that are helpful instead of hurtful. And so with that, let's get into it, Jess.
Awesome.
All right. So AI tools, these are awesome. I've been using AI for over a year now. It started with these AI models where you could create photos. So if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that I can't stay idle. I built an entire card game a couple years ago just because I wanted to challenge myself, see if I could do it. And I created all the artwork using this Midjourney bot to create all of the AI-driven art for the game that I created. From there, I want to say like in December or January, I started messing with the early versions of ChatGPT, very, very early beta versions where it was really kind of clunky and didn't work real well, but they've redefined it. And it's, I think on ChatGPT, like 3.5 right now, maybe 4.0. If you buy the paid version, and it's where you can give it a prompt and it will kick back some text to you. And I've been using this for a long time now. It's helped me do a lot more, a lot faster. And so everybody's worried that AI is going to take your job, but it's not. AI is not going to take your job. What's going to happen is that people who know how to harness the power of ChatGPT and these AI bots, they're going to take your job because they'll be able to do the work of 2 or 3 people, and you will become obsolete if you do not understand how to use this technology.
Jump on the wagon.
That's right. It's free to use. Just try it out. Use it so you understand it, because this train is not stopping. It's going full steam ahead. And if you do not understand it, you do not get on board, you're going to get left behind. So you just started using this, Jess.
Yes, yeah.
What did you think at my prompting? All right. I've been pushing her to try it. So what did you think the first time that you used it?
Well, and we can also kind of piggyback it into a tool.
Right.
For our mental health as well. And so one thing that was really cool for me using it was a lot of the adolescents that I see, they're into this AI stuff, right? And so 13 to 16-year-olds, there's only so much I can tell them to do to take charge of their mental health journey, because they're in this generation where they microwave. I mean, we've all kind of been raised in this microwave generation. We want something fixed. We want something fixed fast. Adolescents are a little even more, because they're just in that stage of life where they want a quick fix. And so if they're struggling with anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, or depression, and I'm giving them tools to start implementing in their life, they're a little bit more hesitant to change their routines and their favorite snacks, if those things are being a negative impact on their mental health journey. So, for instance, one of my clients is 14 and hot Cheetos is their thing. Takis, those kinds of things. And research upon research has proven that the red dye and all those preservatives in snacks like that are terrible for anxiety. And so that's like one little tiny step I'm trying to have. I'm trying to get her to switch to the Trader Joe's versions that doesn't have as bad of some of the ingredients, but still not the healthiest. Anyways, so I used this as a tool for her because she was trying to show it to me and stuff. And she said, well, let's ask it a question. I said, why don't you ask it to set you a schedule that'll help you for your mental health for a day as a 14-year-old freshman in high school. And it gave her an actual structured day to help her prepare mentally for her mental health, for self-care. And it was eat a healthy breakfast and all these things in place that I've been telling her for 6 months that she's like, oh, okay. And this just solidified it for her and made her like a little chime go off in her brain. Like, okay, maybe my counselor does know what she's talking about. So it was kind of a cool tool for that.
Yeah. To reassure. Now, by no means do not use ChatGPT as your therapist.
No.
Because
disclaimer.
Super disclaimer there, because it's just giving you information that's readily available, but it has no discernment to tell you if that information is good or bad. It's literally just giving you the information that's readily available and out there. Sometimes it's out of date, sometimes it's wrong. And so when I use the ChatGPT, I can get an entire ebook built out in just a couple minutes with these different prompts that I give it. I can build an entire ebook, but then I have to go back and I have to edit it. Not just for grammar and syntax, but for sentence structure, which is super important because it can be giving you the right information, but delivering it in totally the wrong direction. It can be giving you the right information, but the tone is off and it can sound more accusatory than helpful. Mm-hmm. And so when you use these tools, you still need a human to look at it, oversee it, and edit it and put it back out there. Sometimes it puts things in. I'm like, that doesn't really go in line with the direction I'm going with this ebook. So I'm going to remove this piece out. I'm going to ask it for a different tip because this tip doesn't make sense or it doesn't work, or I think there's something better. So it's a great way to get about 80% of whatever you're working on done. But that 20% still needs to be a human interaction, focusing on, making sure the whole thing is complete and has the right tone of voice and the right direction that you want to go. And so it's a great tool, but that's all that it is. Yeah. It's a tool to build whatever you're working on. It's not going to do all the work for you.
Well, and I also think about times that I've experienced maybe a mental health crisis, and which is amazing with the Q Actual app that it will have a lot of these tools as well. But also if I'm just like in a mental health crisis and I just can, if all I can think of is to pull up this ChatGPT and say, hey, can you give me some grounding techniques for an anxiety attack? It might be able to just list some things that, because when you're in a mental health crisis in the moment, our brains just shut down and they don't think clearly. And it would be nice to have a tool or a resource to go to, even for little things like that.
Yeah, it's super, super helpful. And this is something that we're putting into the Q Actual app, is we're putting a limited AI technology into it to be able to find trends in your mental health journey. So
that's awesome.
It can be monitoring all of your data points and then suggesting things to you based on the information that we've given it.
Yeah.
So if it can see that you're trending down and you're starting to struggle with anxiety on a more frequent basis, it can suggest these different tools that you can use to manage your anxiety, where you may not even notice that you're trending down or trending up in your anxiety.
It's like my service dog.
Yes, it's going to notice it.
That's amazing.
And then be able to say, hey, by the way, Jess, you should try these grounding techniques, or you should use this technique because you've had good success with it in the past. Because it can see, this is the technology that we're building into what we've already created, is the ability for it to analyze the data points that you're putting in, so it can help you recognize these low points and then suggest things that have already been successful in the past.
That's amazing.
Like if you've used a certain grounding technique and it's worked for a while, but now it's not working, it can suggest one that is similar in nature or one that you've used before in the past. And so it can start to make all of these small little corrections, but you still have to do it, right? It can't do it for you. It just suggests these things and then you make the determination on whether or not to use it.
That's an incredible tool.
That's some of the stuff that we're starting to build in to the technology right now. And then the training as well. So all of the training that I typically do in person or on Zoom to try and teach organizations how to onboard people. Now I've created an entire set of training videos that are being developed, that are already developed. I was just showing you some of them a few minutes ago, but they're going inside of the technology. So now you don't need me to teach you how to use it. You've got this AI generated bot that is now explaining to you what the different value propositions are for each component, how to use each component, and it's readily available anytime you need it.
And she's a lot better looking.
Well, I hope so. She's AI generated, so she's perfect. But here's really cool. Spoiler. I'm getting one created of me. So there will be a Sergeant Q AI avatar that's out there. That will be perfect. Yes.
Perfect.
So it'll be awesome. So that's AI. I have no idea where this is going next because, I mean, it's already gone far beyond anything I thought it was capable of. It's exciting to watch it just start to build on itself and see where it takes us.
It is a little scary.
Yeah, I guess, but you could always just unplug it, right? So
sure.
Unplug the internet. Sure. Just EMP the.
Did you not see the AI bots at the NFL game?
I didn't see this. No. What, tell me about it. What was it?
There's like little robots that look like human beings.
No. Yes. Who made it? Samsung made them?
I have no idea.
Or was it Toyota? I know Toyota's been working on it for a long time. What were they doing? Like
cheering and looking, watching the game.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they're going to take over.
Okay, Casey, you've got to grab that clip and put it in.
Just search NFL bots.
That is wild.
AI bots. They look like human beings, except for they look like they have little headphones on, but that's like their computer.
Crazy.
Yeah, show them right now.
That'll be interesting to see.
I was also watching.
So watch it and then.
My stomach's growling.
What in the heck? No, that's got to be a robot. That can't be AI. That's got to be a robot or something, right? That somebody's controlling. What? Oh my gosh, that is crazy. I know Toyota's been working on robots for a long time. Like they're one of the kind of the premier in the industry of building robotics, building humanoid robotics. They're been one of the front runners forever. And now they have that, which it looks like they move pretty well. And now you're putting AI into it. Yeah, this is going to be exciting.
Okay.
The next war is not going to be fought with humans. It's going to be fought humans versus robots.
Robots versus robots.
Well, no, because, you think of like some of these other countries that are underdeveloped, they won't have this capability. True. It'll just be.
Well, they won't enter a war with us then.
Yeah, I don't know. They still will. I don't think they'll have a choice. I mean, we put troops on the ground anywhere we want, really.
Bots on the ground.
Yes, exactly.
What was your MOS?
We'll bring freedom to your doorstep.
Okay.
So AI, wow, that NFL, that was crazy. That could have been our current event. That was nuts. I did not see that. I was working on my farm this weekend, so I missed that. That's wild. That could have been our current event for sure. But actually, I wanted to talk more about the Maui fires, but not necessarily the Maui fires. I went out to Hawaii to work with the Muckleshoot tribe and the Hawaiian Royal Guard. They had a big powwow out there. And so I got to go out and do some filming with them. They invited the Hawaiian Royal Guard, the royalty, invited the Muckleshoot tribe to come and witness some of their sacred ceremonies at some of their most sacred sites. And so these places that we were able to go and the things that we were able to see and experience as outsiders was incredible. It's things that the average person will never get to see. We got to see where they bury the royal lineage, the royal family, for many, many generations. There's an underground crypt that they have. There's a whole ceremony that happens when they welcome you to the land, when they welcome you to the site, before they unseal the gates, before you descend into the stairwell, while you're down there. And then when you come back out, it was this whole immersive experience. It was totally amazing to watch how they keep that oral tradition alive, how they keep the stories alive of, the royal family and what happened when Hawaii was colonized, and how it was these businessmen. It wasn't the government, really. It was the businesses that came in who wanted that land, who fought to take it and imprison the royalty, the queen at the time. And to learn about that and to hear their history and to hear them sharing that with the Muckleshoot tribe and with me as an outsider was amazing. And it's something that I'll never forget. To be able to be there and bear witness and watch them talk about their history. Even now, just thinking back on it, it was just an incredible experience. And I would never have those experiences if I wasn't out just trying to help other people. And that's what I was doing. How I got invited to this was working with the Muckleshoot tribe, trying to help them put together a mental health program, which got me in touch with the Hawaiian Royal Guard. And then when this event happened, I was invited to go and be part of the film crew that documented this portion of the program that they were doing. And so it's just amazing to be there in that situation. What it got me thinking about was the generational trauma that the Hawaiian people have experienced. And that's what we're going to talk about in a few minutes, is generational trauma, and how when we're exposed to those environments or people who've experienced that, how do we be the best support? How do we say the right things and not the wrong things? And so it was an incredible experience. And they told me that the majority of people in America will never, or in the world will never be where I was and see what I've seen. Even a lot of the Hawaiian nationals that live there will never be allowed to be in this space and see what I saw. And so I felt incredibly humbled and privileged and honored that they would accept me into their space to be able to share this with me as being a participant. And so now I feel like I have a duty and a responsibility to share this with all of you and to talk about how do we now be able to communicate effectively with people who have that in their past, who have that historical trauma that they've dealt with. And we have that here in America as well when it comes to things like slavery and oppression. In South Africa, when you have things like apartheid, like this isn't just an isolated incident to Hawaii. This happens all over the globe. It's something that we have to talk about, but in a positive way that is not accusatory toward one group or victim blaming to another group, right? How do we talk about this in a positive way? Because we see that happen in the media all the time, okay? Where it wants to blame other people who had no responsibility for it. And I'm not getting into that discussion at all. I want to talk about how do we uplift each other and walk through this thing together? And what are some tools and techniques to be able to do that when it comes to things like generational trauma. So I know we went into the current event, and we're just going to really shift gears quickly into the tools. But I wanted to share with you guys, this was my experience. This is what I saw. And I feel like I really do have a duty and responsibility to talk to all of you about how do we be the best support for people who've experienced generational trauma. Because it was an eye-opener for me. And I've been working with a lot of Native American tribes here in America, when it comes to the Choctaw and the Cherokee and the Muckleshoot and the Klamath and all these other tribes, the Hupa. And I've been around it my whole life and never saw it through the lens that I did when I was with the Hawaiian Royal Guard. And I just thought, how do we create a message for people to be able to, not a message, how do we create a conversation where it can be productive and we can learn from one another? And so I'm coming to the professional, you, Jess, to give us a tool that we can use when it comes to this.
Well, there's so many tools, Aaron, that can be a part of a journey, a mental health growth journey for somebody who experiences generational trauma. I would say first and foremost is find a good psychotherapist or counselor, some kind of therapist who has experience in or special training in generational trauma. And that's going to be just your first step in healing, is finding a therapist that can help you then discover more tools, because there's not one tool like could versus would worksheet. There's not a worksheet that you can go through really to even touch the surface of generational trauma. I mean, a lot of proven tools to be good are journal prompts. So there's specific journaling that can take place for you to work through some generational trauma through specific and intentional journal prompts. Also, mindfulness has been proven to be really good at helping, because as you open up certain wounds that have been passed down from you generationally, you're going to have a heightened sense of anxiety or depression or sadness. You're going to just deal with maybe emotions full on that you've stuffed down or ignored for some time. And so just the tools that we've brought up with mindfulness and grounding techniques, things like that are going to be helpful. And then also just if you have never experienced a generational trauma, as maybe a support to somebody, is knowing that you cannot understand.
Okay.
And not writing it off just because you don't understand, if that makes sense. So, for instance, as a combat medic, there are going to be certain things that my husband doesn't understand. A firework goes off, I freak out that he's never going to understand what's going on in my body, my fight or flight. But he can empathize and say, this is real for you. How can I support you? And that's where it comes down to. And, and like you said, we're not going to get into the conversation that the media gets into about personal feelings about different things. Most people that completely disregard generational trauma are those who have never experienced it. And so one example I like to present to people is, and this is kind of keeping all sides in perspective here, is I struggled with severe PTSD symptoms for many years while I was a single mom and as I was raising her as a young child. And so she saw me react to things a certain way and she adopted those tendencies. And so what they call that in the mental health field is secondary PTSD. And so she was the kid who couldn't handle loud noises because I couldn't handle, and she learned and adapted that behavior. And it was still very real to her. Those loud noises were still very scary and real to her, even though she didn't understand why. And so instead of saying, no, you didn't go to war, so you don't have PTSD, we come alongside her and empathize with her and say, you've learned these certain behaviors because they've been shown to you. How do we not sit in these behaviors and allow them to take over your life so that you can continue on in a negative path down as a victim or whatever people want to say, right? So we're going to acknowledge and we're going to validate. I'm going to acknowledge and validate with my daughter that these feelings for her are very real to her. These symptoms are very real. And how do we grow from it instead of sitting in it? If that makes any sense.
No, it does completely. And that was going to be one of my questions. Say, in my naivety of this situation, would it be comparable to exactly what you just talked about? How my kids react now because of growing up with me dealing with PTSD and how my reactions to those things, and then they take that on as part of their personality. Is that similar? So that was going to be the question that I asked.
It's this, and it's just like other mental health disorders that, if anybody, narcissists breed narcissists. Borderline personality disorder breeds borderline, like schizophrenics breed, like they breed one another.
So it becomes a learned behavior.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're just moving right into this. I want to bring in Nino. So Nino is, I've already introduced you. So Nino is a combat vet. He was in the Army, so I forgive him for that. I still love this guy like a brother. And we'll bring him in, and he was in the infantry, so he'll give us a little bit about his story. About, we'd love to learn like where you came from, man. You know, from not necessarily your childhood, but like those formative years of like how you joined into the military, what that military experience was like, and now what you're doing outside of the military. So just so the audience gets to know who you are and what you're doing and the great things you're doing now in Washington State. And then we'll talk a little bit more on your perspective on generational trauma. All right. So we're going to reset, and in a minute, we'll bring back Nino. All right. Well, hey, Nino, thanks for joining us today. Last minute. So Nino came by just to pop in, say hi to studio. He had another meeting in an hour. And I'm like, hey, man, we could use a guest. You want to jump in here and talk about generational trauma?
I said it. I asked.
Oh, okay. So Jess asked, and Nino was like, yeah, sure. I'd love to. What, Army thing, taking credit for my ideas?
No, the Army connection.
Sure,
Yeah.
But it's the Army of one.
Mm-hmm.
We're
one Army.
Oh, okay.
Yes, one Army.
Army of one, be all you can be. What motto are you guys going with right now? You guys had.
I don't know. I think it's changed.
I think it's Go Army. What is it? No, it's what is it now?
I don't know. What does that say? Nope.
It's Fort Lewis.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
see, they got so many different mottos that they don't even remember. The Marines, it's easy. We're the few and the proud.
Few and the proud.
After us, though. It's all right.
It's always like this. No matter. Anytime you get veterans together, we just bang on each other.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
100%.
That's
It has
how
to
it
be.
is.
That's a
And only we can bang on each other. Let a civilian try to do it. And it's like brothers and sisters,
Facts.
you know?
Yeah.
Facts.
Yes.
Facts.
Yeah. But don't worry. I mean, there's two of them and one of me, but a Marine by himself is never outnumbered. So I'm not even sweating it.
I wonder who tells you all this stuff.
A little voice in his head on his shoulder.
I'm just like, come on.
I mean, you join the Army, but you become a Marine. There's a difference.
Hey, I was stationed with a ton of Marines. I have the utmost respect. Yes.
I always saw him in chow halls, but it's all good.
Oh my gosh. All right. So Nino, tell us a little bit about, why you decided to join the Army and then what you did. And you've had some really awesome careers since then.
No, I appreciate that. I grew up in LA, single mom household, me, my mom, sister, middle of LA, just, trying to make ends meet for what we knew. And so, when I was 18, graduated high school, had a buddy who was like, hey, I want to go talk to this Army recruiter. And I was like, all right. I mean, it wasn't my cup of thing. You know what I mean? I was just, all right, I'll give you a ride. Went in there, got him in there. And crazy, long story short, I ended up joining and he didn't. So me and the recruiter said, hey, you'll get 3 meals a day and a place to sleep at night. That's guaranteed. I said, sold. So I wasn't a hard sell. But yeah, I was in the Army. I was in the infantry, did 10 years, did deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. 2010, my squad and I, we hit an IED, a 400-pound IED. And then I had a traumatic brain injury. I had 2 breaks in my right leg. Oh, excuse me. I had several breaks in my right tib fibula that had 2 plates, 18 pins in there now. So I can't run as good, but I can still run. So, but I got out when I was at Walter Reed during the time when I got out. A lady from Wounded Warrior Project gave me a backpack, and it kind of just changed my whole thought process. I knew I was getting out the military. I knew that already because of my injuries. But giving me a backpack and just seeing how I felt in that moment, it kind of just set me on course. It kind of that's all I wanted to do. So Once I did 9 surgeries to get my leg right. I was in a wheelchair for a couple years, but once I got back up, I started working for Wounded Warrior Project, doing outreach, leading that on the West Coast. Then I started doing, did that for about 4 years. Started doing suicide prevention for DOD. And then recently, for the last 4.5 years, I worked for the Seattle Seahawks, covering all their military first responders and Make-A-Wish activations. So my current role now, I work for the Employment Security Department, and we're really pushing outreach in those programs, making sure the rural communities and underprivileged communities are having access and proper access to state programs, and if they don't, finding ways to get that access there. So it's kind of, I've had an amazing career of service, and I'm thankful for it every day. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. You've lived several lifetimes, it seems like. And you had these really awesome careers, these really great places to work that most people wouldn't leave that. They would just want to stay there. It's a great organization. You've got, a great team that you've built, and you're kind of in your wheelhouse, and you got everything moving on all cylinders. But then you want to transition and move and do something different and do something different and build another team. What is it about that drives you?
I think if you've ever helped somebody and you've helped them in a way where you both know in that moment that they could never pay you back for the type of help you've given them, and you don't expect them to pay you back. I think just that feeling in itself, just even thinking about that kind of gets you. You know what I mean? Just being able to help someone and just knowing that it's all love, and you would do it tomorrow and the next day, you know what I mean? It's free to give love, and so just being able to help people kind of just, I think, fills my cup.
Yeah, it's been really cool. I've known Nino for a while now, and just to watch him build teams. So he could go and he could just do this and be very effective. But watch him go into an organization, build a team, teach other people how to do it, and then move on to the next one. And then teach them how to do it, build the team, get that camaraderie together, teach them how to be able to give hope to others, because that's what you're really doing when you go out there. And you said it, when you got that backpack, you said everything changed. It's that sense of hope, like, oh, there's something after this. There's something more, and giving them hope. And then you just start to intrinsically give that to other people through all the work that you do. But you even take it a step further, because now you build teams and teach other people how to do it. And it's really awesome to see. One place I never thought I would see you is Employment Securities Department, right? It doesn't seem like that would be, you go from, Wounded Warrior Project, DOD suicide prevention, Seattle Seahawks Task Force 12, and doing all their community engagements and activations for the military and first responders, and now employment security. So how are you going to take all that stuff you've learned and use it in employment securities to help people access benefits?
I don't think the path changes. I mean, you're really creating little communities, right? And in the role now, you're really trying to change people's perspectives for how they view government services, right? Like there's a lot of help out there, but it's presented in a way that certain communities just don't understand, or they don't trust, whatever that looks like. So it's a matter of getting into those communities and being a voice, saying, not only does this program work, but I'm willing to help support you and get you around the proper people and make sure you're supported to get the job done, right? To get you in employment or whatever the case may be for what you're trying to do. But it's really about creating a community and letting people know that they have support. And a lot of times, we're speaking about generational trauma, but a lot of times some of the best support is coming outside your social norms and giving you stuff that you just never seen before, right? So it's presenting that to them. And so that's kind of like how we go about it. And my role is just getting out there and showing them a different aspect. Like, I come here from the office and I'm not in a dress shirt and dress pants right now. Like, you know what I mean? I want to be a representation of the community and what they look like and what they're doing, and be able to talk to them. Because as a kid, my mom grew up on these type of programs. I was raised on these type of programs, right? So I know the other side of it, right? So it's kind of like be able to bring that history and your relationships now to these communities to support these people.
Yeah, what I try and share with people is, this is where you are, but this is not where you always have to be, right? Every day you can do better and be better. And let me show you what that looks like. And so I think it's really cool that these communities that sometimes are marginalized or looked over, that now you have people who understand it from the inside out. Because I grew up on these type of programs as well.
Yeah.
Right. I grew up on welfare and food stamps and, housing programs.
Facts.
Like I grew up on all of that. And I remember looking at this, and it was somebody in a suit and tie with a clipboard. And that's what government looked like, in my mind. And now you just said, like, I don't do that. I want to look like the community. So there's already trust there because this person looks like me. He talks like me. He's been where I'm at. And now he can show me how to get out of it. There's already some trust that's built there on a subconscious level that they may not even recognize or be able to even verbalize. It's just this person looks and sounds like me, so I automatically trust him. And we understand that as veterans specifically. Because as soon as somebody says, oh, I served here, automatically there's a kinship there. It's like, okay, how can I help this guy with whatever he's working on? Automatically. As where I may not have that same drive for somebody else, but because we have that shared experience. And so you get to bring your shared experience with these programs to the people and meet them where they're at and show them that that's not where they have to stay, that they can move through these programs to success.
And also presenting what the service is from a place of empathy and understanding rather than a place of pity. Right? I don't feel, you know what I mean?
Good.
You see some people who want to be able to provide services, but they don't understand the community which they serve, right? And you have to understand who you're serving, your audience or your customer or your client. That's your most important piece of it. So make sure you understand them and what their needs are. I don't want to just go up to you and say, I know about these programs. Let me throw them at you, because not every program is going to benefit every person. So making sure you have their background in mind and for how you present it, how you serve them,
We talked about that too when we talked about what was happening in Maui and how, you learn the culture of where you're helping, because you're going to come in like that guy with the suit and tie with the clipboard, maybe with the intentions to help, but we're not helping because we're not connecting on their cultural or level. When
the Lord first started leading me to work with First Nation people, the very first thing I did is let me grab as many books as I can to learn about their culture. But I didn't look at books written by an outsider. I wanted books that were written by the people in the community themselves. One of the coolest books I read was Life of the Paiutes, and it was written by Princess Winnemucca. And when she wrote it, the editor did not change her speech at all. Did not correct any of her grammar, did not change the sentence structure, did not change punctuation, nothing. Kept it all in her voice. And so when you read through it, it doesn't sound like any other book that you would read, because it's literally in her own voice. And it was so powerful for me to read that and understand a little bit more about the culture that I was being invited to go and speak to. And now I just got an email from them. They invited me back for the 4th time to come and speak again at their next mental health conference. They said that the people were requesting me to come back. So it's not the leadership the leadership's asking me, but the people that I'm teaching and that I'm working with, they're requesting that I come back and present again. This will be for the 4th time working with this population.
Well, and I think that makes huge impact, because they know you're not from that community, but the fact that you did the homework and you went out of your way to learn their culture, to learn their jargon, that's very impactful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they feel seen and heard.
And one of the things, and so if you're a trainer or a speaker, a teacher on mental health, or you do public speaking at all, I'm going to give you guys a tip right here, piece of advice. You can use it or not. I don't really care. But here's what I did. When I go and I work with any demographic, I want to immerse myself in their culture. I want to eat what they're eating. I want to do what they're doing. I want to be where they're at and the stories that they're sharing. And I go to these big mental health conferences and I watch 2 or 3 other speakers come in. They give their they come right in 10 minutes before they're ready to speak. They give their presentation. 10 minutes after, they sign their autographs, sell their books. They're gone back to the hotel, right? And that's great. They hired you, you did a job, and you left. I don't do that. When I go in, I'm coming in early. I'm asking questions. I'm talking to the people and interviewing them, asking about their culture, asking different questions about their family, different things like that, because I'm learning. And then I put that into my intro of whatever presentation. I was just speaking with this person, and they told me this. And now that person has a connection with me, and so does every person who knows that individual, right? Like, oh, I know this story because I've heard it from the individual. So I'll connect that way. And then I always stick around after and engage with everybody. I'll be the last one. I'll be the guy turning the lights out, right? Handing the keys to the janitor, because I want to make sure that every person that comes to hear me speak gets an opportunity to spend a couple minutes with me. The last time I was there was a gal who drove over 2.5 hours to come and hear me speak. And it wasn't because well, I take that back. It was because she got an email that said that I would be there, but she had been following me for like 2 years on social media and then saw that I was coming to speak. So she drove over 2.5 hours. And if I would have just, punched in and punched out, she would have never had that opportunity to meet with me. I would have never got to hear her story, would have never got to be able to share this with all of you. And so if you're working in the capacity where you're working with a demographic that's other than your own, take time to get to know who they are, hear their stories. I spend time with them. They had a big campfire at the last one, and they told these stories. It would be similar to us telling ghost stories around a campfire, but these were their traditional stories that have been handed down. That's cool. And a way, the storytelling type as well, like that, like they train how to do that, where the elders, somebody who's interested, they'll take on somebody younger, teach them how to tell these stories. Cool. And so the gal who was there, who was giving these stories to us, it was her first time doing it. She had been under tutelage of the elders, and now she was taking on that role. And so that was really cool to see that passing of the torch, that, changing of the guard. For sure. These are things that you would never get to experience if you just went back to your hotel room. Yes. So I spent a lot of time talking about that. But I wanted to share that with you guys, that it's important to know the culture. And so, now you're going to be working with a lot of different cultures and a lot of generational trauma, not just from here, but we are a land of immigrants, especially in the Pacific Northwest. We are a huge melting pot of all these different demographics. A lot of them are fleeing. They're refugees, fleeing their countries because of war, because of persecution, all of these different things. And now you're going to be right in the middle of helping them get the services they need from the government. And so when we talk about generational trauma, what are some of your experiences with that so far? And how are you prepared to step into that role now?
I think I always, as much as I understand it as generational trauma, I refer to it as generational norms, because that's what it is to everybody else. It's a norm. They don't know it's a trauma until either they're told or they exposed to something outside of that, and they realize that it's a trauma. So when it comes to the different demographics that we're serving, of what we're doing, I think you have to really address and adjust to each of them. And you got to really look at it from a micro perspective rather than a macro, right? I can't say every person that comes over here who's working in the agriculture market is from this demographic, right? I got to go and meet that person, individual, and see what those needs are. It could be medical, could be financial, could be housing. You know what I mean? Everything's going to be different. And so one of my best friends told me, it's not how, it's who. And I've learned this along the way. So it's all, right now, what we're doing is building that network. So when those cases come to us, we know who to push them into, right? We know where to get them. And we have those relationships very healthy to where, whatever that case may be, they're getting kind of like Task Force 12. When Task Force 12, if it's a population that this organization does not have a much education with, they can pass it on to this other organization who focuses on that area. And that's a warm handoff. We do it in the military all the time, right? We hand somebody off and they get seen with the same priority and urgency as if they were with the other organization, right? So it just gets them indoors. And then that's also how you build trust, right? Because you take care of that one person, like, at a very high quality level, they're going to go out there and they're going to tell the world, you know what I mean? At least their world, the impact that they just got, the service that they just got. And that might go from 1 to 2 and 2 to 4, but that's going to grow. best thing we can do is be consistent in our product, in our approach, and in our services.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of how we go about it, is just making sure we got our system, our networks, our programs are there and up to date, and they're valuable, and they're working, and then making sure people know about them, making sure that if they don't, finding out how to get that access there, and just do it at a very quality level and let people know that they matter. You know what I mean? That's going to change how people see government, is just them looking at them as a micro perspective rather than just a macro.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What do you think about this approach, Jessica, as a therapist of trying to get in there and find the resources for the individual as a person, not just this demographic?
Right. Well, that's what I do as an individual therapist myself.
Mm-hmm.
Is I work on the micro level with each client, whether it's a couple or a family or an individual. And I use quality resources all the time, whether it's a book that I'm going to walk through with them or a conference I'm going to send them to that would be really good for them in their marriage, or a teenager support group that they would find like-minded people with. So, I mean, I'm a huge advocate for that micro level support. And I also see benefits in macro level support as well, because I want to impact as many people as I can in as little amount of time. And that's just kind of how I'm wired. So I'm in this process of doing the micro level counseling with one-on-ones and things like that. But I'm really building my experience and my education and my knowledge up to be able to go out and do conferences so I can be a resource for you, or for you. Hey, you're struggling with your parenting. Okay, my friend Jessica does a parenting class. She has one on this date, things like that. So I want to be able to do both and, not either or.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And so people who are working, trying to affect as many people as they can as fast as they can, right? We all three want to do that, right? Like that's just how we're wired. But we're not the only ones. There's some of you guys who are listening like, yes, that's me. I want to do that. I thought I was the only one. And so here's the thing. If you want to make the big impact, that big splash, it doesn't happen. Very rarely is that big splash going to happen. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen is a small series of very calculated wins over time will make a huge impact. And everybody, especially in social media now, they all want to build followers. Oh, I need more followers, more followers, more followers. What I've learned is that if you want to make impact, you don't want more followers. You want more leaders. You want to impact more leaders. What can you do? What knowledge, information, or talent do you have that you can give to somebody else and they can have good effect in that demographic? And so like when I go into a setting where I'm teaching in mental health, I want to talk to the leaders. I'll talk to anybody, but I really want to spend time with the leadership because I can teach them these tools. I can give them this training, and they will have far greater impact in that demographic than I ever will because I've educated them on these subjects, and then I empower them to take the message to the people. And then I just continue to come back and encourage them along the way. And so if you're a leader out there and you're trying to make impact, maybe it's in your business, maybe it's in your family, maybe it's in your community, whatever that looks like for you, don't focus on this big win. Have a goal. That's fine. Have a goal, but don't focus on that. Focus on the person in front of you and making them as successful as you can. And then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. I tell everybody that success is consistency plus time, and that equals success. And so accumulating all these small wins over time is going to get you that big impact that we all want to make.
Yeah, you have to get through the micros to get the macro. Yeah.
And that big impact might not necessarily come from you.
Exactly.
You might be able to put that seed into somebody else, and then that goes out there and creates that big impact.
Yeah.
And you got to be okay with that person's success.
100%.
It's still an applaud to me too. I could pat myself on the back too. You know
Sure.
Absolutely. I've got a veteran out of Oregon who went through my program. I taught him the Healing Through Service. I shared with him how to start his own nonprofit, and the dude took off with it. And he founded one of the biggest and most successful veteran homeless programs on the Oregon coast. He got them lifetime funding. I mean, the guy just crushed it. And I was just a small part of his story. I just showed him like, this is how you do it. And then he took off with it.
Yeah.
And he had way bigger impact than I ever could have.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch. I tell people, I don't want my organization to be a top down. I want it to be a bottom up. I want it to be a platform. Come here, get schooled up, and then go change the world.
Sure.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us on the Mental Health Janitors. Thank you, Nino, for stopping by and just jumping in.
Yeah.
It's awesome. We'll definitely have you back. We talked a little bit about the little mini therapy sessions. When we have a guest, we don't do those because we want to spend our time with our guest. And so we don't do those little mini therapy sessions. But Nino has volunteered to come back and he will be the training dummy on the next one. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll find out if we can get Nino to cry instead of me this time. So we talked about a lot of things, you guys. We talked about the new AI tools and advancements that are out there, which are super cool. If you haven't learned about them, go check them out. They're free to try. We've talked about generational trauma and some of the things that you can do to be a good support system for your friends and family. We'll put some resources on the page so you guys can continue that conversation. And I feel like this is a much bigger conversation. We're probably going to have to do like version 2, version 3 on this because it's so big. And I'd like to take this big concept and break it down into something smaller and personal where we can just find one specific story that we can break down and show people what that looks like.
Okay.
Maybe do some role play, something like that to show people what it looks like, how to be that good support system, what to say, how to say it. Because as always, you guys, we want to be able to educate you on these mental health terminology and techniques. We want to empower you to take these tools and use them in your life with your friends and family to help them have a better mental health journey. And we're always going to be here to educate you along the way.
To encourage you along the way.
We're always going to be here to encourage you along the way.
Even though you're always trying to educate me.
All right, I'm Sergeant Q, and this is Doc Jess.
And we're out.